So basically, in this question, we had the set of numbers from 1 through 100, and we want to know like what is the probability that if we choose a random integer in this set, and we want to know the probability that is divisible by 2 but not by 3. So like basically, like I guess this question is also a good review for probability, right? So like remember that whenever a question asks about probability, remember that like probability is always equal to like the number of success divided by the number of possible outcomes. So basically, like remember, probability is like it's like a two-step counting problem, basically, right? So basically, first of all, the number of possible, like this is pretty easy to find, right? Like the number of possible is just 100, since we have 100 numbers, so we have 100 possible numbers to choose from. So if we want to count the number of ways to like succeed, that is like how many numbers from 1 to 100 are divisible by 2 but not by 3. So like we can do some math, right? So we know from 1 to 100 there are going to be like 50 even numbers. So 50 even numbers from 1 to 100. So we know there are 50 numbers that are divisible by 2. But like we also want to like make sure we have to subtract out the numbers that are also divisible by 3. So out of these 50 even numbers, like we need to subtract out the ones that are also divisible by 3. So if a number is divisible by 2 and 3, then that tells us that the number is divisible by 6, right? So we know from 1 to 100, you can do 100 divided by 6, and then you can find that there are going to be 16 numbers that are multiples of 6. So like we kind of want to subtract out these numbers because 16 of these numbers are divisible by both 2 and 3, but we don't want it to be divisible by 3. So we would do 50 minus 16, and that tells us we have 34 like integers from 1 to 100 that are divisible by 2 but not by 3. So like this kind of represents like the number of successful outcomes. So that would represent like the numerator here. So you have like 34 over 100. If you simplify that, you get like 17 over 50, which is like the answer to the problem. I think this question, like probability questions are like very common on the AMC 8, but like they're really not that bad if you just remember this formula. Like whenever you see a question on the AMC 8 about probability, this should be like the first thing that comes to mind. You should always think, okay, first of all, usually number of success over number of possible, usually it's easier to find the number of possible. Like in this case, it was obviously 100 because there are only 100 numbers in the set. So it was like easier to find. A lot of the times the challenge is going to be finding a number of success. But just remember, like keep in mind that probability is always like, it's kind of like a two-step counting. It's like two separate counting problems. And then you just kind of divide them. So that's probably a good way to think about probability.